Hello, fellow Rebel Capitals. Hope you're well. Of course, it's coming out in the news that you were right all along about the medicine mandates. Let's go right over to a story from MSNBC. And I want to be clear, we first saw this story on Zero Hedge, but Josh said, you know what? Let's be completely objective here. Let's go right over to a liberal media source to try to find out what they're saying, and we'll use the article. We'll use their interpretation of the what's going on in New York City more specifically right now. We'll use their interpretation to do this live stream. So just so we're being as fair and as non-biased as possible, although I dislike both parties equally. Okay, so we've got fired New York City workers prevail in medicine mandate litigation. So basically what this is saying is, well, let's read a quote from the judge right here. We have learned through the course of this pandemic that the medicine against cerveza sickness is not absolute. Really? I wonder, someone was saying that way back when, and every single person that said that was labeled a conspiracy theorist, or they were spreading misinformation or disinformation, or they're quite literally just being kicked off of social media. So where's the apology to all those people? I don't think we'll get one. So the judge goes on to say breakthrough cases occur even for those who have been medicated and boosted. Again, this is pretty obvious stuff. And this is what we were saying way back in when these things first came out. The state of New York ended the state of emergency over a month ago. So what happened is these 16 workers were reinstated and they received back pay, as well they should. So the Liberty Council is a nonprofit organization that is not involved in the sanitation workers case, but has filed similar lawsuits for military personnel and healthcare workers affected by the mandates. The court recognizes the shots did not prevent contracting or transmitting, and the mandates are not about health and safety. Josh, how many times have I said that on this channel?
I think you actually started the channel to say that.
Exactly. I mean, we haven't talked about it that much lately because there's different things going on in the news. But there was a while there back in 2021 where pretty much every single video I was doing was how, hey, these mandates are not about health and safety. Here is why. Bam, 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 bam. And in fact, this channel got taken down by YouTube for pretty much making those types of claims or those statements. And fortunately, we were put back up thanks to a tweet from Joe Rogan. But yeah, I mean, we felt the effects of the mandates, even, I guess, indirectly, you could say. So, and why were these things never about health? What was the smoking gun that you could safely conclude beyond a shadow of a doubt that these things had nothing to do with the health of and safety of the society at whole? Because they didn't include natural immunity. So, and at the time, we knew that they didn't prevent people from getting the cerveza sickness. It didn't prevent people from spreading. So what's the point of the mandate? The only argument you could have had is that, well, we've got limited capacity in the hospitals. Okay, well, number one, shouldn't we just go ahead and get rid of the mandates if the hospital system isn't overwhelmed? And then number two, that still isn't a reason for excluding people who have natural immunity. Because we've known since the very beginning, I mean, isn't it obvious that natural immunity is just as good, if not better, than artificial immunity? Our immune systems have been doing pretty well for quite some time. Last time I checked, thousands, if not millions of years. So it was pretty obvious from the get-go that natural immunity would be very effective, and paper after paper after paper showed that that was the case. So how can you exclude that group from these, or how can you force that group to also get these medicines? It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And now everything that we're seeing in the news is proving us right. Then the next thing I've got highlighted here, and this just shows you how these politicians just completely talk in circles and contradict themselves and don't make any sense, which shows you that this was always about some sort of ulterior motive. This is from Eric Adams, who implemented these mandates in the first place for New York, or not. He might not have been the guy that implemented them, but he pushed them. He was very supportive, and he kept them in place when he came into office. They initially might have been set up by that de Blasio knucklehead. But he said, you make the decisions based on how to keep our city safe, how to keep our employees operating, he said. By taking the medicine, we were able to keep the city open. Eric, no, you weren't, buddy. In fact, this whole article is basically telling you that no, the medicines had nothing to do whatsoever with your ability to keep the city open. That's completely that's complete fake news. That in and of itself is misinformation. And you would think that again, so even though all the facts, even though these articles, even though everything is saying that these medicines had nothing to do with keeping the city open, he can still come out and say that they did, and the media doesn't attack him. They just assume as though, oh, he's saying that. They're not calling him out on this. It's unbelievable. He goes on to say, so the determination now from our medical team is to remove the private sector mandates, remove the sport medicine mandates, or the sport mandates for children. I mean, just the fact that you had mandates for children in and of itself is absolutely unacceptable. It's unforgivable. And that is where we are. And if there's something going to change, we're going to announce it. I don't know about that, because what you were announcing to begin with was complete fake news. So why should we trust your announcements now or your announcements in the future when all that you fed us in the past was just pure propaganda?
But George, we had to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have to do something. Yeah, as though there's just no cost whatsoever for doing X, Y, and Z. Let's just shut down an economy. There's no cost to that. Let's just force all these kids to wear masks and to inject medicines that may impact them negatively in the future. Who knows? Yeah, there's no downside to that whatsoever. And also, let's not recognize the fact that healthy people, especially healthy younger people, have more of a risk with the medicine than they do with the cerveza sickness. It's just none of it adds up. None of it makes sense. And if this was just something that was exclusive to a city or a country, it would, I'd be okay. Well, maybe they're just completely off the rails there. But it was globally. It was worldwide. So this really gets to the crux of the topic, is that we knew we were right back then. Now we are being proven right over and over and over again. So if we were right, how was every country in the world wrong? I think that leads us to another topic that we discuss quite often on this channel, and that's that there's other things at play here. Either it was conditioning or just they were trying to usurp power, control wealth. Something was happening behind the scenes that had nothing to do with the safety of the public at large. In fact, most likely it was quite the opposite.
What would you do if you were living in New York a year ago and you got fired from your job because you didn't get the jab and you couldn't go into any stores because you needed the medicine card to buy groceries or whatever they were making you do? Uh,
Yeah, how
now,
pissed off would you be
yeah,
knowing that I mean,
now you're back to
who's
being a citizen.
liable for that, right? I mean, how these politicians need to be held accountable, and they're not.
What would you do,
They're
George,
just
if you
they're
got
just
fired?
they're getting a pass. And this goes back to what Thomas Sowell teaches us, that the one of the main problems with politicians is they pay no price for being wrong. In fact, quite often they benefit from being wrong because then they can blame it on someone else, and then they can try to make you believe as though they have the solutions for the problems that they themselves created. I mean, this is, and we see this play out right in front of our eyes, not just with the surveillance sickness, but everything that they're doing with inflation, everything that they're doing, all these policies toward Russia. Who's going to pay the price for these people freezing to death in Germany this year because of the sanctions against Russia? The politicians aren't going to pay that price. It's the average Joe and Jane. It's the poor and middle class. They're the ones that always end up fronting the bill or paying the bill. Those are the groups that always end up suffering as a result of the mistakes from the central planners, authoritarians, and politicians. We saw it in 2020, and we're seeing it right now. And I think it's unfortunately going to get a lot worse unless we come together like we're trying to do here on this channel and encourage people to push back and practice civil disobedience. And if you see a politician doing these just idiotic things or evil things, if this is something that's intentional, to condition people to behave some way or to usurp power, control wealth, vote them out. Get these bums out of here. And it is true that we can't fix things long term by just getting better politicians in, because at the end of the day, you'll just get worse and worse and worse politicians as the size of government grows. But at least it buys us time to shrink the size of government. And if we continue to shrink the size of government, then we will magically, mysteriously, just get better and better and better politicians, because you eliminate the group that has an, if the government doesn't have any power, you eliminate all the sociopaths that have an insatiable lust for power. And this is the way you fix things, not just in the United States, but globally. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. As always, make sure that you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism. We'll see you in the next video.